Hi everyone, Redneck Computer Geek here with a how-to on replacing the stator that's in one of these Kawasaki 15 horsepower V-twins. Now, stator replacement is never fun. It takes a lot of effort, and there's a lot that you can do preemptively to make sure that it's your stator that's actually what's failed. Now, the thing is your stator actually puts out AC voltage, and it has to go through your rectifier. And your rectifier basically needs about 40 solid volts, 38 to 40 volts of AC coming into it in order to be able to produce 15 volts of DC going out, which is what you end up needing for your tractor's charging system. Now, these Kawasaki's are a little weird in that they come out with a two-prong from their alternator or their stator, and it goes into one side of the Kawasaki rectifier. You can buy a universal rectifier for about 15 bucks off of Amazon. The Kawasaki one, I'll put a link down below, is about 35. The stator itself for Kawasaki, there's not much you can do about that. It's just plain 80 bucks no matter how you look at it. I'll post a link down below. But on your rectifier, you're going to see that it says AC, AC, and then it says B+. So your AC lines go into here, your voltage coming out goes into here. If you've got your Kawasaki one, you've got your plug going in here with your AC, and you've got your output of your DC. So let's take a sec to look at our rectifier. So we've got our stator plugged in right here. As you can see, it's a fresh plug because I just put one in, but we're going to tear it back down to show you. On the input here from underneath, you've got your AC. This is your DC side. This is what cycles through and goes to here. Now, if your stator and your rectifier are working correctly, where this blue and red line is, when the motor is running, you should have 15 volts coming out of this, 14 to 15. If you don't have 15 volts coming out of here, and you do have 15 volts coming out of this, you've probably got a fuse in line that is blown. So you need to check that next. But if you've got nothing coming out of this, and you try a universal and it doesn't work, or you've replaced this, it's your stator underneath here that needs to be torn down. The first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take your lid off, obviously. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts that have to come off so that this lifts. From there, you're going to have to remove your two coils. You've got a 10 millimeter, a 10 millimeter, a 10 millimeter, and a 10 millimeter here. Then in the center, you're going to have to remove your flywheel bolt, your flywheel bolt. Then you're going to have to pry your flywheel off. Now, the easiest way that I have found to do these flywheels is that if you feel around on the edges, you're going to find that there's 2 notches on either side. If you put one notch towards the rear and you put one notch towards the front, as you're pulling up on it with a screwdriver in the rear, you can lift by those notches in order to pull it off. Now the thing is, there's a magnet underneath here. It's not going to want to release it. So you've got to go and work it back and forth while lifting against the magnet. So at this point, I'm just going to rip it back apart in order to show you how simple it is, put it back together, and we'll go from there. And there we are. It's basically that simple. You've got 4 more Phillips to pull out. Your wiring goes through here next to your starter. And make sure that you take the time to fold back this retaining clip that's on this side in order to hold down the wire. Otherwise, it'll come up and you'll hear it hitting inside the flywheel and you'll wonder what went wrong. Here's your starter where it comes up through. So you put your new one on, you thread it back through. You want to put on this one first, this one second, third, and fourth, because you've got to pack this wire in. It comes bent down. It comes with this piece sticking straight out, and you're going to have to bend it down a little bit. Once you get that into place, it's just putting it back together like we just took it off. Make sure that you check your keyway as you're putting it on. And remember, there's magnets on the inside of here that are going to pull it together. Don't have your fingers in underneath. There is no clearance. Even for my pinky won't fit. There we are. Now when you go to put this lid back on, one thing to note is that this is keyed. There's a key right here that goes into your keyway. When you go to put this back on, this is yet again, it's keyed with these 3 points. And as you can see, the keyway was here, but it really doesn't matter if you don't line that up. Just get your 3 key points. Put your washer. And then your bolt. I'm sure I'm going to get some flack for using an impact. But only 1 or 2 little hits. No big deal. Now, your coils on these, they have spacers in them that really don't give them too much playroom. But there is enough that they can end up smacking on this. So when you go to put them back on, you want to be sure that you double check your clearance as it comes around. If you've removed an older coil that's got rusty marks on it, it's simple enough just to line the bolts back up with the rust marks. If you're putting a new coil on, you're going to have to measure it out. Now you want to be careful putting these coil bolts on. I'm using this Black & Decker impact because it has almost no actual force. It's a very light impact. Great for doing stuff like this. Now, like I said, be sure to do your rotation. See, that's hitting. Okay, like so. And now we're going to do the same thing with the other side. On this other side, you've got your kill wire that goes in underneath, and you need to press that in as close to the intake as possible. It's meant to run under the coil, even though it probably would have made more sense to go over it. And yet again, test your rotation. Good to go. Now bring it around once just to make sure you don't hear any scraping from underneath, just in case any metal got moved around. So unfortunately you can't really see the screen, but what I love about this tester is these lights here. You can tell what voltage you have. This one lights up at 8 to 9, this one lights up at 10, and this one lights up at 12 plus. So it's easy to see at a distance without ever being able to actually read the screen. So if I hit a 12 volt lead off my battery, I got a green light, which is the exact same thing we should get off of this rectifier circuit once the motor is actually running. As it is right now, these leads are dead, they don't do anything. But once I give it some juice, and start it up, helps to have the ignition in the on position. So there we are. At this point, we can see that the lighting circuit is definitely dead because there's nothing coming out while we're off. And we can see that the red-blue contact on the ignition switch is now off. There we are. So our rectifier tests out good. Our stator is now installed. It's time to get this thing put back together and get it sold.